My name is Sarah Miller. I'm 25 years old, and this is how I took revenge on the sister who tried to erase my future. I'll never forget the day I walked across the stage at my university graduation, my cap and gown weighing on my shoulders, the lights of the auditorium blinding as I heard my name echo through the speakers. The applause roared like thunder, and for a moment, it felt like the entire world was cheering for me. I gripped my diploma with trembling hands, fighting back tears as I smiled for the cameras. But behind that smile was a memory I could never erase. The day I discovered that my own sister had tried to steal this moment from me. 4 years earlier, I was an 18-year-old girl desperate for a chance to leave my small hometown and chase the future I dreamed about since I was a child. I had worked tirelessly, late nights studying, weekends juggling part-time jobs. Every ounce of myself poured into applications and essays. The acceptance letter I'd been waiting for finally came in the mail, but I didn't see it right away because Emily, my older sister, had gotten to it first. I didn't find out until weeks later, when I stumbled across the crumpled envelope shoved in the back of her desk drawer. My name was on it, bold and undeniable, but the seal had been broken. She had hidden it, intending to keep me from ever knowing I'd been accepted. She wanted me stuck at home, small and dependent, while she played the role of the successful one. The betrayal cut so deep it felt like I couldn't breathe. My own sister, the person I trusted most, had tried to bury my dreams before they even had a chance to live. So as I stood there on that stage years later, my diploma clutched against my chest, all I could think about was that moment. The tears I cried when I realized what she had done, the anger that nearly broke me, and the promise I whispered to myself that day. She won't win. She won't take this from me. I will rise anyway. I grew up in a small Midwestern town where dreams often felt too big for the people who carried them. My parents worked hard. My dad picked up shifts at the factory while my mom juggled long hours at the grocery store. But money was always tight. We lived paycheck to paycheck. And there were nights when I could hear them whispering at the kitchen table about which bills they could afford to pay that month. In that kind of world, college wasn't a given. It was a miracle. Still, I clung to the hope that I could be the first in our family to graduate. I was the quiet achiever, the one who didn't cause trouble. I kept my head down, got good grades, and worked part-time jobs at the diner and the library to save for application fees and, hopefully, a little for tuition. I wasn't flashy, and I didn't demand attention, but I had my dreams, big ones. I wanted to study psychology, not just for myself, but because I'd seen too many kids in our town fall through the cracks. Kids like me who grew up in houses heavy with stress and silence. I wanted to help them find their voices before they felt as invisible as I often did. My sister Emily, though, was the opposite of me in every way. 2 years older, she had always been the star of the family. Popular, outgoing, the kind of girl everyone noticed when she walked into a room. Teachers loved her confidence. Friends admired her charm. And even our parents seemed to get swept up in her glow. I loved her, or at least I wanted to, but I couldn't ignore the way her eyes would darken whenever I achieved something she hadn't. When I made the honor roll, she called it nerdy. When I got a raise at the diner, she dismissed it as cute. It was subtle at first, but over the years, I learned that Emily didn't just crave attention. She couldn't stand the thought of me having any. The hardest part was how my parents handled it. They were good people, but they valued peace more than fairness. When Emily cut me down, they'd wave it off as sibling rivalry. if she lied or manipulated. They smoothed it over to avoid confrontation, and so I stayed quiet. I let her take up all the oxygen in the room while I learned to shrink myself smaller, waiting for the day I could finally leave and build a life where I wasn't always second best. When senior year came, I poured myself into my applications, holding tight to the dream I'd nurtured since middle school, getting into my dream university. It was the only place I could picture myself, the first real step toward the future I wanted. I didn't tell many people about it, not because I wasn't proud, but because I was afraid. Afraid of jinxing it, and afraid of Emily's reaction. In the end, I shared it only with Mrs. Carter, my favorite teacher, who had always encouraged me, and with Emily, because despite everything, a part of me still wanted to believe I could trust her. I remember one night telling her, my voice low with excitement, "If I get in, it'll change everything." She smiled, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite name. Looking back now, I realize it was jealousy, the kind that simmers quietly until it has the chance to strike. At the time, though, I brushed it off. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd be happy for me. I couldn't have known then that trusting her with my dream would almost cost me the chance to live. The envelope should have come weeks ago. Every day after school, I rushed to the mailbox, heart pounding with hope, only to find bills, flyers, and junk mail. My friends were already getting their acceptance letters, some posting their good news online with smiling photos. But mine never came. I told myself maybe I hadn't gotten in. Maybe the silence was the answer. Still, a voice inside me whispered that something wasn't right. One Saturday afternoon, while Emily was out, I went looking for a sweater I'd lent her weeks earlier. I opened her closet, pushing aside piles of clothes, when something caught my eye. A torn envelope shoved behind a showbox. My stomach dropped as I reached for it. There, in bold letters, was my name. My hands shook as I pulled it out, smoothing the crumpled paper. It was my acceptance letter from my dream school. I read it 3 times, the words blurring through tears. I had gotten in. I had done it. But Emily had stolen it from me. When she came home and saw me holding the letter, she didn't look surprised. She smirked, tilting her head like she'd been waiting for this moment. "You weren't supposed to find that," she said coolly. I demanded to know why, my voice trembling with fury, and she just shrugged. "You can't leave, Sarah. Mom and Dad need you here. And let's be honest, you're not cut out for college life. You'd fall apart the first week." Her words sliced through me, cruel and deliberate. She said them like facts, not insults, and it made them sting even more. I stormed to my parents, clutching the letter like evidence. I expected outrage, support, something. Instead, they sighed, exchanging tired glances. "Maybe it's a sign you should stay local," my mom said softly. "Community college is a good option, and Emily has a point. We could use your help here." My dad nodded in quiet agreement. Their dismissal felt like a second betrayal. It was as if my dream meant nothing, as if the months of hard work I'd poured into this application could be erased by a shrug. That night, I sat alone in my room, the letter wrinkled from how tightly I held it. My chest ached, my eyes raw from crying. I felt powerless, invisible, like my future had been stolen before it even began. But as I stared at the acceptance letter, the words leapt off the page, daring me to believe in myself. Through clenched teeth, I whispered into the silence, "I'm not letting her win. Not this time." And in that moment, a spark lit inside me. Emily had tried to bury my dreams. She had no idea she'd just given me a reason to fight harder than I ever had before. The days after discovering my acceptance letter were some of the hardest of my life. My parents weren't going to help me, that much was clear. Every time I brought up college, they repeated the same lines. Asterisk, maybe it's not the right time. Asterisk, asterisk, we really need you here. Asterisk, I realized if I wanted to go, I'd have to figure it out on my own. One evening, when everyone else was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with the wrinkled letter and my old laptop. My hands shook as I typed an email to the admissions office, explaining what had happened. I didn't expect them to believe me, but when I woke up the next morning, there was a reply. I was still eligible. If I confirmed soon, I had to act fast. Relief and panic collided in my chest. I had a chance, but it wouldn't come easy. Emily seemed to sense I wasn't giving up. She turned up her sabotage, slipping cutting remarks into every conversation. You're wasting your time, she'd say with a laugh. College isn't for people like you. You'll be back home in a semester. She whispered rumors around town, telling people I wasn't college material and that I'd been rejected. At first, I tried to ignore her, but the lies sank in, spreading like smoke I couldn't escape. Even my parents started echoing her doubts. Don't abandon us, my mom pleaded one night. Emily can't handle things alone. You're the dependable one, Sarah. The guilt gnawed at me, but beneath it was a flicker of anger that only grew stronger. Money was another mountain I didn't know how to climb. Tuition, books, housing. It all added up to more than I had ever seen in my bank account. I took extra shifts at the diner, scrubbing dishes until my hands cracked, and picked up hours at the library, shelving books long after my friends had gone home. Every dollar I saved felt like a small victory, even as exhaustion dragged me down. Still, the numbers didn't add up. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if Emily would win after all. Then came hope. Jessica, my closest friend, noticed how worn down I looked and cornered me after school. I finally told her everything. The letter, the lies, the guilt. Instead of pity, she gave me determination. We'll figure this out, she said firmly. She spent hours with me at her kitchen table, helping me fill out financial aid forms, hunting for scholarships, and researching housing options. Her mom even offered to help me move when the time came. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was fighting alone. Mrs. Carter, my favorite teacher, became another lifeline. When she heard what had happened, she didn't hesitate. She wrote me a personal recommendation letter to strengthen my financial aid application, and even helped me draft emails to the housing office. You deserve this, Sarah, she told me. Don't let anyone, not even your sister, tell you otherwise. Her words lit something inside me I hadn't realized was still burning. Belief in myself. Still, the emotional conflict was constant. Some nights I was fueled by determination, imagining the day I'd step foot on campus and finally breathe freely. Other nights, fear crept in, whispering that Emily was right, that I wasn't cut out for this, that I'd come crawling back ashamed. Emily didn't let me forget it either. Even if you go, she taunted one evening, her smirk sharp as glass, you'll come crawling back. You're not strong enough to make it out there. Her words stung, but instead of breaking me, they hardened my resolve. Quietly, I finalized my enrollment, confirming with the university, securing a dorm room, and arranging meal plans. I kept every step hidden, knowing Emily would do whatever she could to stop me if she found out. Meanwhile, I worked myself to the bone, juggling two jobs, sometimes studying late into the night on my short breaks. I told no one in my family what I was doing. The day finally came when everything was in place. I had just enough saved for the first semester, with financial aid covering the rest. My bags were packed, hidden beneath my bed. That morning, I walked into the kitchen where Emily and my parents sat, drinking coffee like it was any other day. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady when I said, "I'm leaving for school today." Their stunned silence was all the confirmation I needed. For the first time in years, I wasn't asking permission. I was taking my future back. Move-in day felt like the start of a life I'd been fighting for in secret. And yet, as I zipped up my last bag, the weight of what I was about to do pressed hard against my chest. My parents were in the kitchen when I came in with my suitcase. Their eyes widened, confusion quickly turning to anger. Emily leaned back in her chair with a smug grin, as if she'd been waiting for this moment to pounce. "So, you're really doing this?" she sneered. "Running off to play college girl while mom and dad struggle without you? Selfish doesn't even begin to cover it." I swallowed the lump in my throat, my fingers tightening around the handle of my suitcase. "This isn't selfish," I said quietly, then louder. "This is my life. You tried to steal my future, Emily. I'm taking it back." My mom shook her head, hurt flashing in her eyes. "Sarah, we need you here. Emily can't handle things alone. You're betraying the family." Her words pierced me, but I stood firm, forcing myself to meet Emily's gaze. She smirked, as if sure I'd crumble under the weight of their disappointment. But I didn't. "No," I said firmly. "What would be a betrayal is letting her bury me so she could feel bigger. I deserve a chance to live my own life, and I'm not asking permission anymore." The silence that followed was suffocating. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall as I turned, pulling my suitcase behind me. Emily's mocking laughter followed me out the door, sharp and cruel. But with every step I took toward my car, I felt stronger. My chest ached, but my legs carried me forward, toward the life I had promised myself. Years later, I stood in a very different place. The auditorium was packed, the sound of applause thundering as my name echoed through the speakers. Sarah Miller, graduating with honors. My heart swelled as I walked across the stage, cap and gown crisp against my shoulders, diploma warm in my hands. I scanned the crowd and spotted my parents, their faces shining with pride. They'd come, though Emily hadn't been invited. That was deliberate. She was at home, still bitter, still stuck in the same place, while I was finally free. The cameras flashed, and for a moment, I thought of the 18-year-old girl who had sat crying in her room, clutching a crumpled acceptance letter. She had promised herself she wouldn't let Emily win. And now, standing on that stage, I knew she had kept her promise. Later that evening, as graduation photos flooded social media, my phone buzzed with a message. "Emily." My stomach twisted as I read it. Guess you proved me wrong. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing my reply. I didn't do it to prove you wrong. I did it so I'd never live under your shadow again. I hit send, set my phone down, and looked at the diploma on the table. For the first time, I felt the weight of my freedom settle fully into my hands. Emily had tried to erase my future, but in the end, she had only pushed me to fight harder for it. And I had won. Looking back, I won't pretend the journey was easy. College was everything I dreamed of, but it came with battles I wasn't always prepared for. Balancing classes with 2 part-time jobs left me exhausted most days. And there were nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd made a mistake. The weight of student loans, the loneliness of being away from home, and the lingering ache of knowing my own family hadn't stood behind me. It all pressed heavy on my chest. There were times when I wanted to quit, when Emily's voice echoed in my mind, whispering that I wasn't cut out for this. But every time I thought about giving up, I remembered that crumpled acceptance letter and the promise I'd made to myself. I'm not letting her win. Piece by piece, I built a new life. Professors noticed my dedication, offering guidance when I felt lost. Friends like Jessica became my lifeline, reminding me I wasn't alone. I learned to lean on mentors who believed in me, people who saw my potential without needing me to prove it. Slowly, I realized I didn't have to carry the burden of my family's disappointment forever. I could choose my own support system, a chosen family made up of people who truly wanted to see me succeed. The day I graduated, I didn't just walk away with a diploma. I walked into a future I had carved out of grit and determination. Soon after, I secured a job working with underprivileged youth. Exactly what I had dreamed of since I was a teenager in that small, Midwestern town. Every time I sit across from a kid who feels invisible, I see a reflection of myself, and I tell them what I wish someone had told me back then. You are enough. Your dreams matter. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. I may never fully forget the sting of knowing my sister tried to chain me to the life she was stuck in, but I've made peace with it. Her attempt to erase my future only pushed me harder to build one. And standing where I am now, surrounded by people who believe in me, I can finally say it without fear. My sister tried to chain me to the life she was stuck in, but I chose to break free and build something better. I stood in my apartment, the late afternoon sun spilling through the windows as I carefully folded clothes into a suitcase. On the wall above my desk hung my framed diploma, the symbol of everything I had fought for. Tomorrow, I'd be leaving for a new city to start my job working with underprivileged youth. The dream that had carried me through every sleepless night and every moment of doubt. I paused for a moment, letting my eyes rest on the diploma, and a smile spread across my face. My mind wandered back to that day years ago, when I had found my acceptance letter, shoved in the back of Emily's closet, crumpled like it was nothing. I remembered the devastation, the way my hands had shaken as I read the words that should have brought me joy, but instead felt like a stolen secret. And then I remembered the promise I made to myself that night, clutching that wrinkled letter in the dark. I won't let her win. Now. As I zipped up my suitcase and glanced once more at the framed proof of my victory, I felt that promise fulfilled. Emily had tried to bury my dreams in the shadows of her jealousy, but I had clawed my way into the light anyway. She thought she could hide my future in a drawer, but I walked across that stage anyway, and I'll never let anyone steal my tomorrow again.